Good morning, everyone. It is Saturday morning, bright and early, and we are getting ready to kick off the show, Utah Home Sweet Home. I am your host, Yoshi Shiraki. You're listening to K-Talk Radio 1640 AM, and I've got a special guest in the house today. His name is Matt Strong, and Matt is incredible. I knew he did a lot of amazing things, but when I was reading through his bio last night, I didn't know how amazing you were, Matt.
Whatever, Yoshi. Thanks for having me.
Yes. So, guys, if you have ever thought about getting involved in real estate, if you ever thought about, oh man, it'd be so cool to fix and flip a house like those guys on TV, Matt is one of the biggest key components to making something like that happen. Of course, I would say probably the biggest component is finding the deal. I mean, you can have all the money in the world, but if you can't find the deal. But the second biggest component is finding the money. And that's where Matt Strong comes in. That's what he provides and helps his clients with. And I'm going to let him do all the talking on that. But here's what we're going to be talking about today. Talking about the ins and outs of a real estate transaction through the eyes of a hard money lender / flipper investor. So Matt's a flipper himself, but he also loans to flippers. We'll also be discussing the top questions he is asked by his clients. So he loans to a lot of investors, and what kind of questions these clients ask him. We'll also be hearing about a nightmare story. We always like to learn from other people's mistakes if we can, so going through a nightmare is not as fun as hearing someone else's. So we'll be hearing about Matt Strong's story that he has to share with us today. We'll also be talking about the step-by-step of the real estate transaction when borrowing money for a fix and flip. It's not the same as borrowing money typically. It's not the same borrowing from, let's say, a traditional bank when you go and buy an owner-occupied house. You're buying a house that's very rough around the edges, and a lot of banks won't lend on that. So if they won't lend on that, then who do we go to, and the step-by-steps of that. And basically so much more. So let me dive into a little bit about Matt so you guys know who is joining me today in the studios. So Matt is the principal in Sierra West Capital, which provides funding for short-term real estate projects. To date, Sierra West Capital has funded over 500 transactions and $110 million in volume. That's incredible. That's a lot. Matt Strong is co-founder for MS2 Properties, LLC, and Conrad Cruz Real Estate Services Brokerage. MS2 Properties has purchased and resold over 400 single-family homes since 2004 by utilizing value-add strategies. In addition, Matt also owns, either solely or with partners, over 46 rental units. Matt Strong also regularly represents buyers and sellers in traditional real estate transactions. Matt received a Master's of Real Estate Development from the University of Utah in 2015 and a Bachelor of Science degree in Finance from the University of Utah in 2001, and Matt's going to the game tonight with his son.
That's right.
Go Utes. Matt has been a member of the Salt Lake Board of Realtors since 2001 as a sales agent, and since 2007 has held a broker's license. Most importantly, Matt is married to the most awesome human ever, Bree Strong, and has 3 equally as cool kids, Berkeley, Peyton, and Wilder. Did I say Wilder right?
Wilder.
Wilder. Awesome. Very cool. I have a friend, he's from Chicago, and he named his 2 daughters Peyton and Jordan.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, Walter Payton, Michael Jordan.
There you go.
Two Chicago athlete stars. You didn't name her after Walter Payton, did you?
No.
Okay, or him?
No,
okay,
girl.
Okay,
yeah, Peyton's a girl.
Okay,
so.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, because there is Peyton Manning, right?
There is, right.
Awesome. Well, let's dive into this. Without further ado, Matt, I'm going to ask you, if you don't mind, what are the top 3 questions you are asked by your clients, and can you share your thoughts on each question?
Well, okay, that's a great question. Yoshi, thanks for having me. So,
thank you for joining us.
The top 3 questions, I think they're going to vary from time to time, but in general, people are asking, maybe I'll answer this as far as what are my top 3 answers.
Yes.
To a question someone asked about how do you get into real estate or how do you get into flipping. And you kind of alluded to it a little earlier on, but the 3 things I think you need in order to get into this fix and flip game is you obviously need a house.
Yes.
Right? Like you mentioned, you can't flip anything without having a product that buy and then sell.
Right.
You obviously need money, whether that's cash or private funds or whatever.
Yep.
And then you need a plan. right?
Yes.
Like you need a plan to be able to execute in terms of how are you going to rehab it, who's going to do the work for you, how are you going to sell it, and we'll go into this maybe in more detail, but I think the easiest part of this is the plan, for me anyway, right? Like once you have the house
yes,
and you have the money,
yes,
you're going to figure out how to do it.
Right.
You may not do it right,
right,
but you're going to figure out how to do it.
Exactly.
Right? Because worst case, anyone can go in there and start demoing stuff themselves.
Right.
Right? And the money always comes.
Yes.
And we'll talk about where that can come from.
Awesome.
I think, though, the number one thing you need to figure out is how to find that house.
Yes.
That's going to drive everything, right?
Yes.
You have the house, then you have the ability to go find the money. You have the ability to buy it.
Yes.
Right? And this show maybe isn't about finding houses. I know you've had Trevor and other people on that maybe speak better about how to go find that house. But there's thousands of ways to go buy the house.
Yes.
But once you have the house, I always tell people, if you get a good deal on the house, don't worry about the money, because the money will find you.
Yes.
Right?
Right.
Because there's always going to be a matchmaker for matching that money with the good deal on the house, and then the plan will follow.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. Very cool. So that's for people that are listening. It's so true. I've heard. I spoke at an event once, and someone said, "You say that if you find the deal, the money will come." Like, I don't get it. How does that work? Well, there are people out there that make money loaning money, so they want you to present their deal, right? Like, lenders don't make money if there's nothing to loan on.
Exactly.
And so if you've really got a good deal and you can match it up and you can present it to lenders, and it is a good deal, they want to loan to you.
Well, what's cool is in this game, really in any business, but in the real estate game, there's so many different players that are playing the game at the same time.
Yes.
One person, if they're maybe sophisticated enough and have all of the resources, can play the game and be all the players on the field.
Right.
They can find the house. They maybe have enough money in their bank account to do the funding for the house. They maybe do all the work on the house.
Right.
They're maybe a real estate agent and can sell the house.
Right.
So potentially one person can fulfill all the roles on the team of fixing and flipping a house. But typically you've got maybe someone that finds the house, someone that lines up the money guy that does the money.
Yep.
Then they're hiring someone, a contractor,
Yep.
to rehab it. Then
Yep.
they're maybe hiring a real estate agent to help them sell it.
Yep.
So then there potentially could be 7 or 8 or 10 different people a part of the deal. But you're exactly right? Like, so then there's people that just want to be a part of the game, lending the money.
Right.
And so I'm obviously on different sides of the table a lot. I'm buying stuff for myself to fix and flip, but then I'm also helping, other investors that come to me after they found a house and say, "Hey, Matt, here's this house in Kearns or whatever. Right? I'm buying it for X.
Yep.
It's going to sell for this much. This is the rehab. How much can you fund?"
Yeah.
And that's where we come into play, and we have to usually act really fast, because sometimes in these distressed situations, you never know when you're getting a house or how quickly you need to close. Right. So that's where we can come in and provide. Private or hard money, when you think about it, it's the ability to act really fast, sometimes within a day.
Yes.
Usually within 2 weeks or less.
Yep.
And can understand quickly the nature of the transaction, what the upside is, the risk of the borrower, the risk of the deal, and then provide the money needed in a quick and timely and safe way.
Yep.
For the borrower to jump on and start doing the deal.
Absolutely. And that's so true. That's where we talked about earlier. Typically, it doesn't happen the traditional financing. I was approached with a deal opportunity on Thursday. Oh, we talked about it actually on the phone. I was pulling comps on it.
Yeah.
Yes. I was informed that if we move forward with this, it has to fund Monday.
Yeah.
Right. So that's what, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, 5 days.
Yes.
You can't go to Zions Bank or Bank of America and get a loan in 5 days. So yeah. Awesome. Okay, so what other questions are you asked by your clients?
Well, you bring up a good scenario, right? Like, so a lot of times, and this happened, when I was talking to you, it happened yesterday. It's like, hey, a really local popular investor, John called me or texted me actually yesterday as well. And this happens all the time. It's like, hey, I have a deal. I could buy it, but I need to close Monday, and we're talking this is Friday, and I'm like, John, that's like, with the weekend, that's like, a half a day.
Right.
And so a lot of times the main question is, if I get this deal, it's kind of like a hypothetical, but it's real,
Yeah.
Would you have $200,000 on Monday so I can buy it? Right. So sometimes my decision an answer to them as far as, yeah, I'd have the money, will, allow them to say yes or no
Yes.
to that seller
Yes.
on the home. So that's maybe one of the main questions is, do you have the money?
Right.
Would you lend to me?
Yep.
What requirements are you going to ask of me?
Yes.
And then how quickly can you get it all done?
Right.
Right? And so sometimes if I've worked with somebody multiple times like I have with John,
Yeah.
really my answer is on the back end going, okay, do we have the funds available? I trust John. I know John's not stupid. He's going to buy a decent deal.
Right.
Yeah, John, we can do it, right?
Yeah.
And so sometimes with a new investor, there's a little bit more of a road we need to walk down to determine, okay, well, do you know what you're doing?
Yes.
Is the house legit, right?
Right.
And so sometimes I need a little bit more time depending on the experience of the investor. But that's probably question number one is, do you have the money and
Yeah.
then would you lend to me?
Okay. Very cool. Very cool. Awesome. All right. Well, that's wow. Just in that, I think we could wrap, right? That was very valuable. We still have time. Okay. What's the second question, Matt, that you're typically asked by your clients?
So then once we determine, like in a hypothetical situation, would you fund this deal, right?
Yep.
Then the next question is, what do you need from me?
Yeah.
Okay? And so, like your example of, say, Zions Bank. Zions Bank, if you've ever gotten a loan, not to pick on them, any bank, right?
Yeah.
Like, they're going to usually want a tax return. They're
Yeah.
going to want bank statements. They're going to want W-2s. They're going to want your credit. They're going to want, employment history, all that kind
Right.
of stuff, right? Which makes sense for them. But for us, I'm really more worried about the collateral, the
Yeah.
property, what upside it has, and then the borrower.
Yeah.
And obviously I care about the borrower, but if they're getting a really good deal on the house and they're alive,
Yeah.
like, that's usually good enough.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Because if they don't perform, then me as the lender, I can fall back on the property.
Right.
So then them asking like what so I have a 2-page borrower checklist. So the things I want to know from them is I want to know how they perceive the deal. Like, what do they think it's going to resell for? In real
Right.
estate, we call that the ARV,
Yep.
the after repair value. How much they're going to spend in rehab.
Yep.
How much money they think they're going to make.
Yep.
Right? So I kind of want to troubleshoot and look and see if I agree with
Yeah.
them. Because I don't want to lend them money if the deal isn't going to make money for them.
Right.
And sometimes they're inexperienced and they think it's going to make money, but it
Yeah.
really doesn't.
Yes.
So I'll maybe kind of troubleshoot with them their analysis.
Right.
And then it's more the weeds kind of things, like are they buying it in an LLC,
Yeah.
who are they using, who's their real estate agent, just the transactional part of it.
Yes.
To make sure that we're prepared, especially if things are moving quick, right?
Right.
I need a signed contract. I need, to kind
Yeah.
of check my boxes off.
Exactly.
But most importantly, I need those things. I need to know what the borrower thinks the deal looks like in terms of scope of work with the rehab, what they think the ARV is, and then just especially if I don't know them very well, a discussion about who are you using for the contractor.
Oh, yeah.
And 8 times out of 10, it's like, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Good luck, let's do it.
Yeah.
But sometimes it's like, yeah, no, I don't think you're going to make money on this.
Right.
Let's relook at it.
Yeah.
And so sometimes at that point, it'll be like, oh, well, I'm canceling the deal.
Right.
I don't want to tell people if it makes sense or not, but sometimes based off of, well, normally we'd fund you, say, at $100,000 on this deal.
Yeah.
This one, I don't know, man. Like, we'll do it, but we're only going to give you $70,000.
Right.
That's kind of me pushing back, saying, I'm not so sure this
Yeah.
makes a ton of sense.
Yes,
Right?
yes.
So that would probably be question number 2 after, would you do it? It's like, how are we going to do it?
Right. Yes.
And then we'd move to, once that's a green light,
Yep.
then it's just execution, right?
Yep.
This is where you need to be at what time.
Yep.
This is how much money you need to bring to the title company.
Right.
And then I guess we could talk about either now or in a little bit, kind of like how typically the loan's set up.
Sure.
Because that would be probably the third part of it.
Got it.
Is,
But before we
it's all
jump to
involved.
the third part, that's such a good point. I had consulted some individuals on they were trying to do their first flip,
Yeah.
and we got on our call. We had a weekly call. I was consulting them through this process, and they said, we're really disappointed because our hard money lender wouldn't loan on the deal. And I said, your hard money lender just probably did you a massive favor,
Yeah.
right? And that's what's so cool about it is the hard money lender is almost a second layer of eyes on the deal for those new investors that think they have a good deal,
Yeah.
but they might not.
They might not. And sometimes, you know what, it's okay to do a deal that especially if you're really trying to get into it.
Yeah.
The only way to learn is sometimes to, fall on your face, right?
Yeah.
So when I tell people no, I hope I'm not telling them no, like, it just doesn't make sense, but add a value of, like, telling them why.
Yes.
Right? Like,
yes.
this is maybe what you're not seeing.
Yes.
And sometimes there's borrowers I have where I'm like, bro, I don't know, man. I don't know how you're going to make money on that.
Right.
And they'll surprise me.
Yeah.
Because they'll maybe do, like, an extra awesome job on the house.
Yes.
And do something really unique that added a ton of value where they will sell it for more. And sometimes, I'm right, where it's like, yeah, sorry, man. Yeah, like, I kind of can see why you lost money on this deal. And,
right.
A lot of times, though, some neighborhoods are more predictable than others,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
on those more predictable neighborhoods, we're usually in alignment with what, the numbers are going to look like.
Awesome.
But, yeah.
Very cool. Well, that actually is perfect because I have a question about your third question. So I'll wait for you to go over what your third question you're asked, and then I've got a question in regards to that. So what's the third question?
Well, so then obviously people need to know what it's going to cost, right?
Yes.
And every lender is going to be different.
Yep.
Just like every deal is going to be different. So our typical structure, and again, I wish it could be cheaper. It's expensive stuff, right? Just because on the back end we're getting money to fund these deals, and it's not like it's coming to us for free.
Yes,
right? So,
exactly.
But typically, a general structure for a hard money loan is maybe a 6-month term.
Okay.
Because if you're doing the house right, you're going to be able to buy it, rehab it, have it for sale in about 4 months.
Right.
Have it sell in about 30, 45 days, right?
Yep.
And then, so a 6-month term is pretty typical. We will offer extensions because some deals can go longer, right? But just in general, we're looking at like a 6-month term. 2 points. When we're talking about points, we're talking about percentage points off of the loan amount.
Yep.
So if we're loaning $100,000, the 2-point fee would be $2,000.
Got it.
1,000 times 2.
Yes.
And then an interest rate of 12%. That's an annual interest rate.
Okay.
Broken down on a per day basis for how long you're going to have the money out.
Yes.
And again, this is just like kind of how I roll.
Right.
I've seen other hard money lenders charge 5 points and 18%.
I have too.
So everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? So
Yeah.
you've got to ask those questions, get referrals, find out who other people that have borrowed money from this person.
Yeah.
See if they're going to, destroy you on extension fees or whatever.
Right.
But the simple math, and I'll leave my contact information at the end of the show. Anyone could call me and we could go over the details of how this works. But really simple. If you're going to borrow, say, $100,000 in 6 months, in general, you owe $108,000.
Right.
So for 6 months on a $100,000 loan, your cost is about $8,000 for financing.
Got it.
But a quick note, I've done over 400 houses myself.
Yeah.
I quit keeping track because it was kind of depressing, but I've paid millions of dollars in interest.
Sure.
And
But
I
you've
have
made a
not
lot.
made millions of dollars.
Right.
I've been doing this for 15 years,
Yeah.
so I probably have in
Yeah.
aggregate made that. But the point is I've paid way more in interest than I've made on properties.
Right.
But I never would have made anything if I
Yes.
didn't have the ability to borrow money.
Right.
Because, the local banks weren't going to give it to me.
Yep.
And when you're getting started, it's not like you have all this money in the bank, right?
Yeah.
So that component of needing the money and paying the interest, albeit high, is so necessary, right?
Exactly.
I see borrowers all the time that pay 2 points, 12%, and they may make $50,000-$60,000 on a house.
Yeah.
And maybe they paid $15,000, $20,000 in interest,
Right.
but they still made and leveraged the right way.
Exactly.
And so it's kind of a necessary evil. So I love paying interest.
Yeah, me too.
You know?
Seriously, yeah.
Because it means usually that I'm making something on the back end.
Exactly.
As a borrower and as a lender, right? 'Cause
Absolutely.
Anyway, yeah.
Well, in most of the flips that I do, I borrow a first and a second.
Right.
The second for the remodeling. So my return on investment is infinite.
It's huge.
Because I don't use any of my own money.
Exactly.
Right? So, yeah, I pay lots of money in interest too, but...
Hey, like I said before, everyone's got a little, place at the table.
Yes.
And they can play the game differently.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it is so necessary. There was one of the real estate books Gary Keller wrote, Millionaire Real Estate Investor. I may get the quote wrong, but he said something like, "The path to wealth is through debt." Right? I mean, you got to be responsible,
Yeah.
right? But you've got to be able to borrow
Yes.
intelligently. Otherwise, you're
Yeah.
you're never going to be able to leverage like you are. I mean, how cool is that? You can borrow 100% plus
Yes.
and put maybe no money of your own money into it, buy a property, pay for all these people to do the work on the house
Right.
with someone else's money,
Right.
and then hopefully make money on the back end, plus provide a really cool new house
Yeah. Yeah.
for a retail buyer that's moving in.
I agree.